Om Sarvadharmasthapakas Sarvadharmaswarupaka Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. We are studying here Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, second part as the spiritual aspirant or sadhana, and we are still in the first chapter called Sadhak and Sadhana. And we were reading the 11th para yesterday. And in that para, we have said before that the notion about the universe held by the generality of people has to be renounced both by men on the path of knowledge and by those on the or that of devotion. This has been named as dispassion or vairagya. By the complete renunciation of it, man becomes free from all mental modifications and is thereby fit for Samadhi. This we discussed yesterday that Samadhi is the knowledge obtained in the Nirvikalpa state of the mind, and that man becomes fit for that. This kind of Samadhi, because there are various kinds of Samadhis, and he has already described Savikalpa and Nirvikalpa in Guru Bhav Gurvarga. This kind of Samadhi is called in the scriptures Nirvikalpa Samadhi. We have told the reader elsewhere how the aspirant on the path of knowledge makes the effort to know what am I, how he attains the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and what kind of experience he has at that time. Now, here in the footnote is it mentioned, third chapter of the third part. But specifically, these three things are there, and we find they are in three different sections of second and third chapter. So, up to this, we had read yesterday. So now, we turn our attention, if you have the first volume, which contains the first three parts. So, instead of the second part which we are reading, it is referring to the third part which Saradananda Swami has written earlier. So, let us turn our attention to that. Yesterday I said that it is mentioned specifically in Sri Ramakrishna's teaching Swami Turiyananda. So, if we go there, that is Mm. Mm-hmm. Where it has gone ahead. One minute, please. Bhav Samadhi. No, later on. Hmm. Attempts, seven planes, Swami. 37 para of the second chapter in the third part. Third part, second chapter, 37 para. And we have started reading that. A friend of ours, Swami Turiyananda, paid much attention to the study of the Vedanta at one time. Vedanta चर्चा बेशी समय दिएছিলেন, says the Bengali. And it does not mean only, of course, study also can mean that, not only reading books, but meditating and also discussing with friends if possible. The master loved him on account of his continence from childhood. So, prerequisites of Vedanta are being mentioned. Continence from childhood, devotion, steadfastness, and so on. As he applied himself to the study of the Vedanta, meditation mentioned here, first only study of the Vedanta. Then the detail of that is given as he applied himself to the study of the Vedanta, meditation, devotional exercises and the like. So devotional exercises also he was doing, dhyan bhajan. And so now the modern Vedantis don't know about devotion. No? And the like. The friend did not or could not visit the master as usual for some time. That means before this he was going more frequently, now less frequently. This did not pass unnoticed. One day the master saw a boy who used to visit him along with our friend come alone to Dakshineshwar and asked him, "Well, how is it that you come alone? Hasn't he come?" The boy said in reply, "Sir, he has now applied his mind intensely to the study of the Vedanta. He spends night and day in study, discussion and argumentation." That is his friend's reading. Because Saradananda Swami has already mentioned meditation, devotional exercises and study. And this friend mentions study, discussion and argumentation. So it is that friend's understanding. It is perhaps because he thinks that time will be wasted, he has not come. Now, here only shift of emphasis is there. He was coming to Sri Ramakrishna, not as frequently as previously, because he was given to study, meditation and devotional exercises. The master heard this and said nothing more. The person we are speaking of came to Dakshineshwar a few days after. As soon as he saw him, the master said, "Well, I hear you are now given much to the discussion of the Vedanta." No, here also the Bengali word Vedanta Charcha. That is very good. So Sri Ramakrishna is not decrying that. It is very good. But, very good, but. So something specific has to be understood. How one goes to Nirvikalpa Samadhi by method of knowledge we are studying. And in that study, discussion, all right, very good. But something more is necessary. But Does it not amount to this? Brahman is real, the world unreal, or is it anything else? Here, as I mentioned, the orthodox way is that by half a shloka I will tell you what is written in crores of books. Or crores of books may be by many types of books, KOTV. Shlokardena pravakshami yaduttam grantha KOTV. Brahma satyam jagan mithya jivo brahmaiva napara. And out of this, Sri Ramakrishna does not require jivo brahmaiva napara. He says, what is Vedanta? Brahma satyam jagan mithya, or anything more. And Turiyanji immediately caught it. So the Jiva Brahmaya Napara is something redundant. If Brahman alone is the real, then Brahman itself is Jiva. Brahman itself is the world. Neither the world is real nor Jiva is real. So this difference should be taken in mind. Friend, yes sir, what else can it be? That means that was the immediate response. He had not thought this before. He was studying and studying and studying. Of course, with meditation and devotional exercise. But when Sri Ramakrishna pointed out, it flashed in him, yes. And that difference he is explaining now. The friend says that the master opened his eyes to the import of Vedanta in those few words. So his eyes were opened at that time. Up till that time, he was not thinking like that. So this is the first point in the method of knowledge. To conceive that Brahman is Satya and the world unreal, Jagat Mithya. Hearing those words, he was surprised and thought he was surprised because something new he has heard, and thought because he started introspecting. It is indeed true that everything of the Vedanta is understood when one is convinced in one's heart of hearts. So you may call it intellectual conviction, but convinced in the heart of hearts means a touch of experience has come. And it is called dharana, conception. So first, Vedanta comes to us as conception, dharana. When one is convinced in one's heart of hearts of the truth of these few words, that is what we found on introspection. The master, now Thakur is teaching him. The master, hearing, thinking and meditating. Now this is a weak translation. In English, there is no equivalent of the word. The whole sadhana of Vedanta is mentioned in Hagiographical teaching to his wife Maitreyi. And there he says, Vedanta, no, this Atman has to be realized. How to realize? Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan. Now, Nididhyasan is a very special word, does not mean dhyana in the ordinary way. So we shall see that. This is Vedanta, this is Jnana Marga. Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan. So this is how the Neti proceeds. You hear first that Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. And as soon as you hear, dharana comes. Now what is Manan? In English, generally this Manan, here it is thinking. Manan is translated as a reflection. Now we hear Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya, some conception arises. But life after life, from the beginning of creation, we had wrong knowledge about ourselves and the world. And our thinking is based upon that. And I would highlight, though it is path of knowledge, our feeling, our sankalpas, our will are all based upon wrong knowledge. That I am a subject in the midst of objects. So what happens? The mind will tell us, how is it I feel like that? Now, you feel like that. But you should reflect the truth which you have heard on your thinking. And in the light of truth which you have heard and which you have conceived, you should revise your thinking. That is Manan. Some people think Manan is cogitation. I am Brahman, I am Brahman. No. Manan is revising your thinking in the light of the truth which you have heard and which a conception has arisen in you. Because Manan comes after Shravan. Now what happens? I may tell by my own experience. After about 8 or 10 years in the ashram at Nagpur, I approached my Guruji and said, 10 years have passed and yet I don't have any experience. He said, is experience like pumpkin and God? And he asked me a question. Tell me, your thought world, idea world, these are the two words he used to use. Your thought world has changed or not completely? And like Turan Swamiji, I reflected for a moment or no. And I said, yes. You understand this? In the house when we were, our thinking was of very different kinds. And this thinking is not only Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya, all our thinking. So the thinking or thought world or the result of thinking, idea world. So it has completely changed or not? I said, yes, it has completely changed. Now all of you are listening, please mind this. So the second step in Vedanta is total change in our thought world, in our idea world, on the basis of the truth which you have heard. Generally, we try to say, but we experience like that, but we don't thrust your experience on that Vedanta. Revise your thinking on the light of that Vedanta. Now thinking has completely changed. I said, yes. He said, now experience will start. So, Nididhyasan you have to understand in this light. We'll see what Thakur is telling to Riyananji, but the word Nididhyasan is different from the ordinary word meditation. Our meditation is to hold some object or this or that, which Shankaracharya calls upasana. Then, what is Nididhyasan? The idea or the concept of Brahman has already arisen in the mind. And all doubts and everything have gone practically because of Manan. Now, by the sanskara, so many ideas will rise in the mind. So many hundreds of ideas. Stick to that Brahman which you are feeling. So Nididhasan comes when you have started feeling Brahman. Stick to that and remove all other ideas. That is Nididhasan. Nididhasan is mostly a negative process based upon the positive feeling or conception of Brahman. This is Nididhasan. And that is strong. Truth is stronger than falsity. So when the sanskaras will be removed, then Brahman will shine. So the scriptures are not asking us to do anything with Brahman. That is our real nature. But due to wrong ideas, wrong sanskaras, it is not shining. If everything wrong is removed, the truth will shine. Atma vayare drashtavya. Shrotavya mantavya nididhyasitavya iti va are drashtavya. So in this way it has to be realized. Let us see now what Thakur is telling Turiyan Swamiji. First hearing. You at first hear that Brahman is real, the universe unreal. Then thinking. In Bengali, Manan. By reason and discrimination, you get that idea deeply and correctly imprinted in your mind. That is Thakur's description of Manan. By thinking in that light, that idea becomes deeply imprinted in your mind. That means mind, that idea only changed. And after that, meditation. And after that, nididhyasana. You apply your mind to Brahman, the real entity, by renouncing the universe. So yesterday, renunciation is beginning. So the universe has to be rejected. Dispassion, you don't want it. It's coming, but you do. Coming due to sanskara, but you don't want it. You know it is unreal. And it has said that Jnani Yogi renounced totally from the beginning. By renouncing the universe, the unreal entity, that is all. That is all. Of what avail will it be if one hears and understands this? That is the universal see. Of course, understanding also difficult, but understands it. But does not try to give up what is unreal. It is like the knowledge of the worldly people. It does not mean householders, worldly people. One cannot attain reality by means of that knowledge, like the worldly people. Conviction is necessary, renunciation is imperative. So conviction by Shravan Manan and renunciation by Nididhyasana. It is then alone that one can succeed. Otherwise you may repeat. There is no thorn, no pricking. But the moment you touch the thorn, you feel the prick and cry out in pain. This is example. Huh? You merely utter, there is no universe, it is unreal, it is Brahman alone that exists. So many pandits talk like that. But as soon as the objects of the world, sights, tastes, etc., Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, come before you, you take them to be real and you get entangled. Then he gives an example. How reason can be applied wrongly. There came a holy man to the Panchavati. Holy man means sadhu. He used to speak incessantly on the Vedanta to the people. Then one day I heard that he had contracted an illicit connection with a woman. I went in that direction in order to ease myself, that Jautala, the forest of tamarisk trees. When I saw him sitting there, I said, "You talk so much about Vedanta. What is this talk about you then?" As people talk, he replied, "What does it matter? I can make it clear to you that there is no harm in that. When it is a fact that the world is unreal in the past, present and future, will my action alone be real? Your action is real because you are acting. So theoretically, world is unreal, but your action, that is also unreal." I was annoyed when I heard this and said, "Fie on your knowledge of Vedanta." In original Bengali, you know, mute ditor Vedanta. That is the kind of knowledge which the worldly people have Vedanta. That knowledge is no knowledge at all. Let us read the full. That is how the Vedanta is realized. There the conversation ended. The master told him all this while he was walking with him under the Panchavati. Our friend had been laboring under the impressions, laboring under the apprehension that the Vedanta could not be understood and liberation would be a far cry. So, first understand and then try for liberation. And Vedanta could not be understood. Liberation will be a far cry. Till difficult books like the Upanishads, Panchavati, Panchadashi, and the like were studied. Now, this book Panchadashi is an intellectual understanding of Vedanta. It's a good book, in my opinion, useless. It may be helpful in Manan. No, I learnt it from one of my teachers. And when I was requested to teach it, once at Rishikesh by some householders, I stoutly refused. Then in Chennai, some sadhu friends, they pressed me very badly. "Please teach Panchadashi." I said, "All right, bring the book." One or two of my classes are on YouTube also. They recorded. And then third or fourth day I said, "I will not teach it. If you want to study, you study. In that place, I will teach you Vedanta Sar." Anyway, so people are under the impression that Panchadashi has to be studied. Difficult books like Upanishads, no, Upanishads are essential. And Upanishads teach you Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. Panchadashi and the like were studied, and a clear understanding of the philosophical systems like Sankhya, Nyaya, etc. was attained. That is another big misconception. We find a reference to it in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna finds some Hindi-speaking sadhu sitting under a tree, and he talks with him a little, he's satisfied, and he asks him to come to Dakshineshwar. And there he asks him that you must have studied Vedanta. He said, "Yes, Vedanta includes 6 systems." Remember, the sadhu tells Vedanta includes 6 systems.
Includes extremes, yes.
So what is the meaning? The traditionalist will tell you, you must study grammar first. Then you must study Nyaya. Then you must study Sankhya. And then only you can understand Vedanta. And that is the orthodox method. So Turiyan Swami is thinking like that. Now my teachers have told me, if you go by that method, you can never understand Vedanta. Because the Sankhya system, Nyaya also, appear to be so logical, appear to be. They take hold of your mind. And they interfere with your understanding of Vedanta. On the other hand, I was told by my Guruji and other teachers, you can understand Vedanta very simply if your mind is pure enough. And if you can understand Vedanta, through Vedanta you can easily understand Sankhya and Nyaya, etc. So what is Sankhya and Nyaya? You have a level of a mind. And you philosophize that. Now all will not be in harmony. Because truth does not contain that level. So that much you accept Vedas. This is Nyaya. Now you advance a little in your perception by yoga. And then you apply your logic. Buddhi. And Buddhi cannot function unless there is duality. Unless there are many things. This thing is like that because this thing is like that. So many things have to be there. So how can this intellect lead to Advaita? Not possible. And they accept that much of Vedas which is rational according to them. And so they arrive at a poor conception that we are different from Prakriti and we are different from each other. Now this rut of the mind, Vedanta, interferes your understanding of Vedanta. Now what I am telling is, if you understood Vedanta, you understand that from this level of mind, if you think it is Sankhya. So the understanding different philosophies means understanding that level from which the philosophy has come up. And this Gaudpada has very clearly dealt with in his Alatha Shanti Prakaranam of the Mandukya Karikas. On the other hand, I will tell you one ordinary thing. Ordinary thing is, Revered Swami Tapasyanandaji was lecturing in the annual function at Nagpur. And he said, people say Vedanta is difficult. This difficulty is not an intellectual difficulty. This difficulty means less of purity. If your mind is pure, you can understand it. So, we are traveling along with Turiyananji. And a clear understanding of the philosophical systems like Sankhya, Nyaya, etc. was attained. From the master's talk that day, he came to understand that the only purpose of all Vedantic discussions was to have that conviction in one's heart that Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. One might read basketfuls of books on philosophy and logic, but if one did not have the firm conviction Brahman alone is real, the world unreal, it would make no difference. Whether one studied them or not. He bade goodbye to the master and returned to Calcutta, deciding that he should thenceforward apply his mind more. So shift of emphasis on. He did not give up reading Vedanta. That he should henceforward apply his mind more to the practice of spirituality, dhyan, meditation, nididhyasana, than to the study of books. So emphasis shifted. Previously also he was meditating. Now more of meditation than to the study of books. So he continued study of books. Thakur had said very good, but this is important. Determined to know God direct through spiritual practices, he now applied himself wholeheartedly to them. This is not complete. One lesson Thakur taught him on one day. Now, after some days, Thakur came to Balram's house in Bagbazar, and Turian Swami's house was near about. Thakur called him there. And when he came, he heard the master say, I jumped one or two paras, description of Balram and all that. He heard the master say, well, is it a very easy matter to realize that lust and gold are really unreal? Out of the world, he has brought out two things, lust and gold, are really unreal. And to have the firm conviction that the universe is eternally non-existent, eternally, that means Trikala. Is it possible without his compassion? It is possible only if his grace produces the conviction in us. What is happening here? I am convinced. So I is there. And I is the obstacle. Now God is in everybody's mind, inside. When he manifests, we call it his kripa. And then the mind changes. So a path of knowledge. It is possible only if his grace produces the conviction in us. Can a man have that conviction by his own effort? Oh, how small is his power and how small is the effort he can put forth with that power? Because individual power is limited. Thus, speaking of the grace of God, the master went into ecstasy. After a while, he was in divine semi-consciousness and said, man cannot have a clear idea of even one thing and he wants another. Then the master began in that state to sing the song, why are you proud, O Kusha, our love? Would you have captured me if I had not allowed myself to be captured? Now this Prasanga is from Ramayana. Love and Kush, Rama's son. Rama sent a horse for Ashwamedha. And these two little boys caught him. And warrior after warrior Rama is sending. Lakshmana and this and that, and they defeat everybody. Rama sends Hanuman. And Hanuman has immediately judged they are Rama's sons. Now he wants them to be brought to Rama. So he gets captured. And that he is singing. I allowed myself to be captured, that is why you have captured me. As he was singing, streams of tears flowed down from the master's eyes, and a part of the sheet covering the carpet got wet. Caught by the pathos of the wonderful teaching, the friend also could not check himself and shed profuse tears. It was some time before both of them came to the normal state. The friend says that teaching has forever been imprinted on my mind. And I have known from that day that nothing can be achieved without the grace of God. Okay? So I learned Vedanta, Jnana Marga through Thakur's teaching Turiyanand Swamiji in 2 steps. Now, another place in the 2nd chapter itself, para 13, we are going back. Para 13. The master said that no world, context is different, but I am reading. The master said that no worldly object or relation acted as an obstacle in the path leading to his experience of the Nirvikalpa Samadhi according to the Vedanta. For he had verily renounced for her sake, that means he was devoted to Kali Mother, all kinds of desires from his mind. While offering everything to the mother, he had said, Mother, here is thy knowledge and here is thy ignorance. Knowledge, relative worldly knowledge. And give up knowledge does not mean you have to take ignorance. So both are mentioned. Here is thy good and here is thy evil. I am doing good. This idea has to go. Does not mean I am doing evil. So both are mentioned again. Here is thy vice and here is thy virtue. Spoken oppositely. Here is thy fame and here is thy calumny. Grant me pure devotion to thy lotus feet and show thyself to me. Thus had he renounced all kinds of desires for enjoyment out of pure love for her, and in order to have a direct vision of her holy feet. Can we ever imagine of doing this even to a small extent? So, a point we are gathering from here, all desires have to be given up. If we want to, that is dispassion also has been told, if you want to realize path of knowledge. Now, the third point, and that is in that 3rd chapter. There also question and answers are there, like this sadhana. Para 5, chapter 3. As soon as people hear that the master used to dwell incessantly in Bhavamukh, they generally jump to the wrong conclusion that he was not a man of Vedantic knowledge and that he always lived his life in the midst of the emotional surges of pain and pleasure arising from the separation from and union with the Divine Lord. But a correct appreciation of the present subject is possible if we have a clear grasp of what it is to be in Bhavamukh and under what condition it is possible. We are not going up to that point. Nirvikalpa Samadhi and then Bhavamukh. Therefore, let us here discuss briefly once again the state of being in Bhavamukh from a different standpoint. That is that Samadhi standpoint. The reader will recall that the master attained Nirvikalpa Samadhi in one day. Now there is a footnote here. You see, there are 2 descriptions. Totapuri taught master And Master first said, I am not able to make without form. And he did something and Master succeeded. Totapuri locked the room so that others should not disturb and waited when he will call me. And for 3 days he did not call. So Totapuri went after 3 days and observed him. So within 3 days, some people say 3 days, some people say 1 day. So Totapuri understood after 3 days. So here it is 1 day. And remained in that state for 3 days and nights at a stretch. Question: what is Nirvikalpa Samadhi? This is important now. Corresponding to what we are learning now. To bring the mind to the state in which it is completely freed from all mentations. There it is said mental modifications. Mentation. Action of the mind is called mentation. Vritti of the mind is called mentation. So all mentations are to be completely, is completely freed from all mentations. What is mentation? So he is beautifully explaining what is mentation. Remember, all the mental modifications that has come, such as, so mental modification is mentation is mental modification. So what are the mental modifications? Such as the perception of the objects of the external world consisting of sights, tastes, etc. All the perceptions are waves of the mind. So first category of manovritti is our perception of the world. So mind should be freed from that. Second, feelings of pain, pleasure, etc. Feelings is another type of vritti. Imagination. Now the Western people say thinking, feeling, will. And in normal Vedantic books, feeling is not touched at all. Thinking. But feeling is a definite faculty of the same mind included in meditation. Now third thing, imagination. What is imagination? Where our understanding, feeling is not able to reach, you pull the mind, extend its capacity, that is called imagination. So this kalpana also is a vritti. And that mind should be free from any kalpana also. Discussion. That means what? Adan pradan. That also are waves of the mind. Inference, anuman. That is also wave of the mind, etc. And desires. Desires is another wave of the mind. And desires such as types of desires. I will do this. I will understand that. Both are desires. I will enjoy this. I will renounce this. Also is a desire. And so on. So in all the meditations, these are the types of meditations beautifully analyzed by Swami Saradananda. And when mind is free from any of these meditations, imagine those who are asking, neti, this is the way. And this was perhaps mentioned that we already said. But as the other points here necessary, we have discussed them. Directly in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, here is mentioned. and so on. Question: on what do these modifications depend for their existence? Reply: on the knowledge of I. Yesterday we were talking of that. If the consciousness of I vanishes or is stopped altogether for some time, vanishes or stopped altogether for some time, there can be no modification in the mind. So unless I is there as a subject, there will be no mental modification. Nor can it grip the mind during that period. That means it will not be there and it will not come to grip the mind. It is a fact that in the condition of swoon or deep sleep also, the knowledge of I vanishes. Is Nirvikalpa Samadhi then something like that? No. In deep sleep or in swoon, the I is very much there, not expressed. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, there is no place for I. So, one or two more paras are there. How to understand and all that. So, this is what he refers to that we already talked about. And I think by now, the path of knowledge has become clear to us. Now it is not like deep sleep and all that is explained in Vedanta. Soon, deep sleep and Nirvikalpa Samadhi is different. In all of them, it is suppressed or not expressed. It goes into seed form, I consciousness. But in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, it vanishes.
I was confused.
So I think we have now come to the understanding of how path of knowledge leads to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. We go back. We are still in that para. Para 11 of first chapter of Sadhak Bhav. We have told the reader elsewhere how the aspirant in the path of knowledge makes the effort to know what am I. He finds that there is no I. How he attains the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, we have seen that. And what kind of experience he has at that time, this we will not study. That not like sleep and all that. Now, the reader should be told a little of how the aspirant on the path of devotion arrives at the realization of that superconscious state. That is the wonderful treatment by Saradananda Swami, seeing Thakur's experience. Now this makes me strike one more thing. I think tomorrow we shall read those two paragraphs which you have listened. That is not how to get Nirvikalpa Samadhi, so we did not read that. But here he says that we already mentioned what is the type of experience there. So that we shall see tomorrow and we will come back to this iti or path of devotion. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakasvam Sarvadharma Swarupakah Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. Om Shanti 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 Hare Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanam.